Good morning. From the time that we are very young, it seems as if we have always had in our mind heroes, examples of individuals whose qualities we admire, who stand for us as an example of not simply what it is that we wish to be, but oftentimes what it is that we wish to become. From the time of our infancy, oftentimes those initial heroes may be our parents or our grandparents. As time goes on, perhaps a little too quickly, parents and grandparents seem to be replaced by other individuals who are part of society as a whole. Some are athletes, some are scientists, some are politicians, some are people that we come into contact in schools, teachers, and others who have assisted us along the way. Perhaps we look at the manner in which they carry themselves, and the manner in which they address us, the manner of which they care for us. And we feel within ourselves a certain peace and joy when they are around. Sometimes these heroes are people that we don't know personally, that we see from afar, but admire the manner in which they have been gifted by God with talents and succeed on various playing fields. As we grow older, however, oftentimes these initial heroes no longer remain. At one point or another, this veil that may have been covering our eyes to only see one or two attributes of these individuals has been removed. We have seen them in other circumstances that perhaps we don't necessarily agree. And we become disillusioned and look for others to take their place. On this Sunday, the Sunday immediately following the Feast of Great and Holy Pentecost, the Church celebrates the Sunday of All Saints and lifts up for us as an example of all of the men and women who have served God throughout the ages. Not that they are holy in the manner in which they lived their lives, for none of them were sinless. Many of them dedicated their entire life from the time that they were infants to the service of God, and yet sinless they were not. Some of them lived a life that couldn't have been further away from the teachings of the church, couldn't have further alienated themselves from God. But through His grace, their eyes were opened and they changed their ways and came to serve Him. Whether they ministered to Him during the time of His earthly ministry, or whether they ministered to His fellow children, to us, the manner that they cared for God's creation, giving first glory to Him in the manner in which they lived their lives. And you can ask and say, well, what is it that they attained? Did they get more likes on Facebook? Probably not. Were they worried about what others thought of them? Definitely not. We hear today in the epistle of St. Paul to the Hebrews an example of what the saints were able to do because of their belief and faith in God. All the saints, through faith, conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, received promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched raging fire, escaped the edge of the sword, won strength out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign enemies to flight. Women received their dead by resurrection. Some were tortured, refusing to accept release, refusing to die, that they might rise again to a better life. Others suffered mockery and scourging, chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, sawn in two, tempted, killed by the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, ill-treated, of whom the world was not worthy. Whom the world was not worthy. We'll come back to that. Wandering over deserts and mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. These are the people that we lift up as an example to each of us, not because they are holy on their own, but because in the manner in which they followed the example of the only one who lived on earth and was sinless. The manner in which they loved, as the gospel reminded us, as Christ's own words reminded us. They loved God first, before father, mother, brother, sister, before land, before anything that exists on this earth. They loved God first and dedicated not simply their life to His service, but cared about nothing other than offering their brokenness to Him who made them whole. And on this feast day, as we lift up the example of the true heroes of the faith, as we lift up our words in praise of God for the example that He has given us through the saints, that He has showed us that even though we are broken, to not fear to serve Him. Even though we feel unworthy, to still approach Him with love so that He may make us worthy, so that we may be found unworthy of the world, to whom the world was unworthy of the world, but worthy to enter into the now open gates of paradise, so that we can lift up our own voices with the army of saints who have found mercy through God's love and continue to live as we hope to continue to live with Him forever in paradise.